Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the narrative tenses. Okay, these are the tenses that we use to narrate a story that happens in the past. We're looking at 5 main tenses here: the past simple, the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. First, let's look at the past simple. We use the past simple when we want to talk about consecutive actions or situations in the past. Let's look at some specific examples. The first one, I woke up at 7 o'clock this morning. I got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and made some coffee. These events happened consecutively. Okay, first I woke up, then I got out of bed, then I went to the kitchen, and then I made some coffee. Another example, example 2, we arrived at the airport and checked in. First we arrived, and then we checked in. We use the past continuous to talk about longer continuous past actions or a situation that was in progress when another action happened. We form the past continuous using was or were plus a verb plus ing. Let's look at some examples. When I was walking down the street yesterday, I saw my old friend Jason. We use the past continuous to talk about what we were doing when suddenly we saw our friend. Okay, I was walking. We don't know when. Okay, you began to walk. Okay, I was walking and that action was interrupted. I saw my old friend Jason. Or we can talk about more than one thing that was happening at a particular point in time. At 9 o'clock, most people on the plane were reading or were trying to sleep. They began reading or trying to sleep before 9 o'clock, and it continued at that point. Okay, we use the past perfect to talk about the earlier past, okay, things that happened before the main events of a story, and we form it using had plus the past participle. Let's look at some examples. When we arrived at the airport, we suddenly realized that we had left one of the suitcases in the taxi. When did we leave the suitcases in the taxi? Before the main event of the story, which is our arrival at the airport. Okay, we realized something, that prior to this we had left one of the suitcases in the taxi. They told us at the station that the train had already departed. Looks like we missed our train. We arrived at the station and the train had already left. We use the past perfect continuous with action verbs that talk about longer continuous actions or situations that started before the main events happened and continued up to that point. We normally don't use non-action verbs or state verbs with the past perfect continuous. State verbs such as be, have, know, and like are usually used with the past perfect simple. We form the past perfect continuous using the verb to be in the past perfect, right? We say had been plus verb plus ing. Let's look at some examples. We'd been flying for about 2 hours when suddenly the captain told us to fasten our seatbelts because we were flying into some very bad weather. We had been flying. Here we're emphasizing the length of time that we had been doing that before the main action of the story. We knew the slopes very well because we'd been skiing at the resort for several years. Okay, here we want to emphasize that we had been doing this action repeatedly over a number of years. Okay, so we use the past perfect continuous. We'd been skiing at that resort for several years. That's why we knew the slopes so well. Now, when do we use the past perfect simple and when do we use the past perfect continuous? Well, the past perfect continuous emphasizes the continuation of an activity or the length of time that's been happening. The past perfect simple emphasizes the completion of an activity. Here are some examples that might illustrate this. Lena was crying because she'd been reading a very sad book. Okay? She began reading the book beforehand, and then she started crying. Lena didn't want to see the film because she'd already read the book. We don't know when she read it. She read it sometime in the past. But then the film came out, and she decided she didn't want to see it. She had already read the book. Well, I know this is a lot to take in, but I'm sure if you practice a lot, you'll master the narrative tenses. Thank you.